Hi everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining today's webinar. If you could let us know in the chat section just whether you can hear us okay. We'll just give 30 seconds or so for those people who may be a bit late to join. And at the same time, we'll be able to check the audio. So I'll just mute myself. But again, if you could let us know that you can hear us okay, that'd be much appreciated. Okay, everybody, thank you for the feedback. So welcome. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Online Best Practices During COVID-19 and Beyond. Today's webinar is scheduled for around 45 minutes or so, but we may run over slightly if we receive a lot of questions. So just as a quick introduction, and just to put some faces to the voices you'll be hearing, my name is Chris. I'm part of Reputation.com's currently home-based EMEA marketing department, and I'll be your host today for the polls and the Q&As. Today I'm joined by Bruce McKay and Adam Dorfman. And Bruce is our Director of Solution Engineering for our EMEA team, and Adam is our Director of Product Management. Adam has kindly joined us all the way from Chicago for today's webinar. So we've got the ideal people on today's webinar to give you the very best advice about reputation and social media management, but also Google and what they're doing to help your business navigate COVID-19, and perhaps more importantly, what comes next after COVID-19. So just before we get started properly, some quick housekeeping to cover for those of you who may be new to Bright Talk. Just so that we're not inundated with background noise, and so the webinar hopefully runs smoothly, attendees have been muted automatically so that only the presenters will have audio capabilities. In our experience, you'll have clear audio if you're able to call in rather than using your device's audio. And also, if you can, please view in full screen so you don't miss anything shown on the screen. Feel free to send us any questions as we go. We'll put as many of them as we have time for to Bruce and Adam to answer during the dedicated Q&A time at the end. We'll also ask a couple of poll questions throughout so we can interact further and get some insight to share with everyone on the webinar today. So our agenda today follows one key topic, best practices during COVID-19, and then also what comes afterwards and how you can use now to prepare your brand for what's beyond the coronavirus. Now in a couple of slides, I'll pass over to Bruce. We'll look at some online best practices, which we've placed into 4 key categories, which Bruce can cover. And afterwards, we'll look at our second poll question before Adam then discusses beyond COVID-19 and the steps you can take today to help your business not only return to normal as quickly as possible once this is all over, but also thrive. We'll then go into a Q&A so you can ask our 2 presenters anything you'd like about what we've covered today. Today's webinar is extended compared to what we would usually run, and that's specifically to give you the time to ask our 2 presenters anything you'd like to know. So please do send in any questions as we go along. So just before I pass over to Bruce, we'll run our first poll. So this poll should appear on your screen shortly, and it says, have you updated your online marketing activity to address COVID-19? You'll see 5 answers to choose from. Yes, we've updated Google My Business, social media, and more. Yes, but only on one channel, for example, Google My Business, social media, or something else. No, but we are planning on doing so ASAP. No, we would like to know how. And no, and we're not planning on doing so either. So I'll just let that run for 20 or 30 seconds more. So just as that's still running, we can see the vast majority of people have picked what I suppose is the right answer, if there is one. Yes, we updated Google My Business, social media, and more. 75% so far on the live poll have said that, which is great. 25% say yes, but only on one channel, which again is fine. But it's good to see that everybody is engaged and updating marketing activity to address COVID-19. So I'll now pass over to Bruce as we move into some essential things that every business really needs to be doing right now to ensure business continuity. We'll walk through 4 or so things and build to the importance of Google to your online and offline presence. So over to you, Bruce.
Yep, thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be with you here once again. So this webinar, it's a follow-up to one we did a couple of weeks ago or so on the 1st of April. And as Chris mentioned, we're going to be covering a few additional topics here today. We're going to be covering some things about what Google's been up to recently, and of course some thoughts on preparation for after the crisis has ended. But in this section, I'm going to reiterate some of the best practices that we encourage every company to undertake right now. So essentially, this is a quick list of essential things that every business should be doing right now to ensure business continuity. And what we mean by business continuity is making sure that you can help your customers as best you can and help ensure that your business can survive really any kind of emergency. So we'll cover those 4 topics now, and then at the end we'll move into thinking about what to do after the pandemic, and then of course open up Q&A at the end, as Chris mentioned. So the first big theme for everyone is, of course, a little bit obvious. But it is the absolute right place to start, and it can take a little bit of planning to do this sort of thing really well. So, of course, invest in the time to make your website and your location pages your anchor. And when I talk about location pages, they are the individual pages on your website that relate to each individual, location, store, branch, or whatever the right terminology is for your business. So, drive as much activity as you can to your website. Use your website as effectively as you can to consolidate all of those resources and tools that you're probably assembling anyway, to help your customer base, help your partner businesses in the ecosystems that you operate in. I'm sure that many of you on this webinar today, you've been seeing your online presence has been shifting somewhat in recent weeks. For some companies, we've seen the website activity is a lot higher than usual. Some companies, it's dropping. But for most companies, of course, website is still absolutely critical to your business. Because we're covering Google in this webinar as well, I want to remind people that one of the biggest signals that Google looks at to determine what they know about your business and about each of your business locations is what is on your actual website. So by updating all of that information on your site, that in itself is a very strong signal to Google that what you're doing is reflective of what your business is doing today. And therefore updating all of that information is equally as important as it is to update, your Google My Business panels themselves as well. So spend time here, spend time making your website, making your individual location pages your anchor, and ensure all of that information is accurate, make sure it's informative, and make sure it's updated at all times. So we talked about the website, but of course, when it comes to planning your communications with customers, of course, social media is absolutely critical. Key point here is, yes, for sure, you should be using social media right now, but the challenge at this time is that in a lot of cases, you need to be a lot more agile than you usually are because the current COVID-19 situation is moving so fast. And don't forget that your social media sites are your fastest public relations and messaging response tools that you have today in your online arsenal for communicating out into your customers. So we encourage everybody, post updates to all your social media channels, boost the most mission critical updates that you have. And if you're doing things like shifting your business in some way, then share that. Share how you're doing things today. If they've changed, share that with customers, share that with prospects as well as you can. And when you do post, always bear in mind that people are human. Your customers are humans too. And in this time of uncertainty, consider how you can lighten things up a little bit. Keep spirits up, foster that community spirit. Don't just provide information that's dry. Engage with people a little bit more on a human level. If you are a business who has unfortunately had to close locations, then also consider how right now this time might be an opportunity to try out some new things on social media that perhaps you wouldn't have tried before. So rather than concentrating on posting and social campaigns about how to get more people into your locations, because of course people can't come in most cases, rather than that, try things, try engaging with your community a little bit more, fostering deeper relations with customers, foster that staying connected with customers. And when you're posting, for many businesses, there's also a scale dimension to posting here too, particularly if you're in a business that operates multiple locations and each one of your locations has their own social pages, their own Facebook page, their own Instagram page, their own Twitter page. Getting the right message out to your customers and prospects is important for sure, but if you can maintain that local element too, even if your local sites are closed right now, that local element really helps customers and helps people feel engaged and wanting to support their local sites again once things get back to normal. Posting locally helps your customers feel that you're still there, you still care about them, you have every intention of opening up business as normal, and it just helps to foster that community spirit. So the takeaway here is not only think about your social media communications, but also think big. Think about communicating wider, think about communicating more often than you're perhaps accustomed to in normal times. The third point here, well, if your website is your anchor for all your content, all your resources, all your online presence, well, also remember that Google is rapidly shaping up to become your digital front door. So what I mean by digital front door is that Google is fast becoming the de facto online site where your customers, where your prospects first find and first interact with you before they even get to your website. And in some cases, they don't even go to your website at all because all the information they're looking for is on Google. Excuse me. And that Google is your front door message is something that we've reinforced as a business through multiple webinars over the last few months, through lots of conversations we have with our clients, through conversations with the broader market. It's a trend that it's fair to say that not every company is recognizing just yet, but it is a trend that's absolutely very real. And it is accelerating rapidly as Google innovates rapidly in this market. So Google is your front door, is going to be a drumbeat that you'll hear us at Reputation.com continue to talk about throughout this year. So continue to update your Google presence. And the key points there are, firstly, you should be auditing your presence on Google My Business. You should be claiming your Google My Business listings if you haven't done so already. Secondly, you should be keeping all of that information as up to date, as current as you possibly can. And lastly, you should be engaging on Google My Business however you can to enrich your presence and communicate to your audience, because your Google My Business pages, they're not just somewhere where you publish information about your locations, they're also a communication channel. So think about enhancing and enriching through the communication aspect of it as well, other than just the information about your locations. So Adam, I think you've got a few updates also to share with everybody about what Google's been doing over the last few weeks.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Bruce. So there has been a number of Google My Business updates, and they're coming very quickly. One thing I like to share with our customers and prospects that maybe are expressing frustration at them not being able to do everything they'd like to during this or message as much as they would like to, or communicate in as many ways as they'd like to, is to point out that Google is moving so fast that they are actually releasing features. They released the temporarily closed feature to Gmb, which I'll talk about in just a second, and then pulled it back to work on it some more for 3 days, which is very unlike Google. So that's a really good indicator of how fast Google is trying to move here and how important they are to that they see like what they provide businesses. They understand how important it is to the businesses and their communities and customers as well. So I do want to give Google some credit here, although of course we're always can always be frustrated with what Google allows and doesn't allow as well. So let's go through some of those recent changes that they've made. I'm going to start with the second one, which is temporarily closed. So if you're a business and you've had to close temporarily, you have a unique label there. I want to point out that if you do mark your business as temporarily closed, Google has been on the record publicly that it has zero impact in the ranking algorithms. So you should not be concerned about losing visibility by marking your business temporarily closed. And when you are able to open again, all things being equal, you should appear exactly where you had previously. Second thing that they've announced is removing chain restrictions from businesses that have multiple locations and would like to manage Google Posts through a tool such as reputation.com, as an example, that would allow these enterprise multi-location businesses to post the same post, Google post, to multiple locations at once. Bruce just talked through this. This is a huge change for Google. They've been very resistant to this for many years, ever since Google Posts opened up, primarily because there is a material and measurable impact in their paid search revenue when Google Posts are utilized. So a couple of things to note there. First, if you hadn't been doing Google Posts previous to this, and this is a good indication as to why maybe you should be, because all things being equal, people are more likely to click on knowledge panels if it has a post in it, which means if you're also bidding for that paid keyword spot, it would be a free way to not have, it would be a free way to drive clicks to your free knowledge panel clicks versus your Google Ads clicks instead. The second thing that's important here is this is becoming a more and more prominent, especially in mobile apps and mobile experiences, way to communicate to your customers. So if you haven't taken advantage yet of messaging, creating messaging and communicating with your clients through Google Posts, and you are a multi-location business because of scaling reasons, now is the perfect time to start experimenting with that. They've also released a new COVID-related post that is supposed to stay live for 2 weeks, although we're seeing depending on the experience that you are in within Google, whether you are in a Maps app or desktop results or mobile results, that Google COVID-19 specific post might only stay up for 7 days still. However, it does have other benefits, the most prominent one being that if you do a COVID-19 post, it's going to become sticky in many ways, which means that if you put a COVID-19 post up today and tomorrow you do a regular event post or something, or event post or an offer post, the COVID-19 post, even though it's older, will still be pinned to the top for as long as it is live. So it's something to consider as well too. Regarding reviews, we all know Google pulled down reviews for an extended period of time once COVID came out. That was primarily because people were starting to post things like John Smith at this store gave me COVID-19 or gave me the coronavirus. So there was a lot of safety issues that Google was trying to address, some privacy issues. They seem to have resolved that and become confident in them being able to allow reviews to appear again. So not only is responding live, we're starting to see new reviews showing for some industries and some regions as well too, and those are slowly being rolled out. Google Q&A is still suspended. They have no update as to when it's going to come back, although when I spoke to Google yesterday, our contact there said you should expect that when it does come back, it's going to be rolled out similar to how they are rolling out new reviews again, which is going to be by industry and by region. And then finally, attributes. Google has done a lot and has given us indicators that they are going to be doing more with making attributes more, creating new attributes, making them more extensive, the types of attributes you're able to select, as well as making them more prominent in the knowledge panels and map results so that searchers know, for instance, if you're doing a search for a restaurant, whether it has curbside pickup or no contact delivery or takeout or just regular delivery as well too. So that's all things to consider. If you haven't looked at the attributes for your business recently, that's definitely something that you would want to look into. And at the beginning, the new attributes that Google was focused on was first and foremost for healthcare. So healthcare definitely received the new attributes first. Then they launched some new ones for dining, which I just referenced a few of those, but they're starting to roll those out to other verticals as well too. So if you're in retail, for instance, they're now supporting attributes like has curbside pickup, has delivery, and has in-store pickup. So if you are managing a retail store, or if you are a marketing person for a business that has hundreds or thousands of retail stores, it might be worth investigating whether those are attributes that have been made available to your businesses, and make sure that you've appropriately checked the correct attributes for you. And I think those are all the updates that I have as of today. Tomorrow there will almost certainly be new ones, because it does seem like every day there's new stuff being announced. So Bruce, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, so last of the 4 recommendations here today. So I expect many of you listening to this webinar today have roles focused in a marketing capacity. And as marketers, a lot of focus is put around communicating with customers, responding to customers, and so on. But when you step back a little bit from all of that push-based communication, it becomes apparent that during that process, you've often gathered a significant amount of information, and that information itself can lead to business insight. And of course, business insight enables you to identify ways in which you can improve what you do for customers, what you do for the business, and right now, how to help navigate the current crisis. Now, when it comes to using feedback and analyzing and monitoring the sentiment of the feedback, we of course have a particular point of view here at Reputation.com, because one of our strengths is that we're very, very good at taking structured customer feedback and unstructured customer feedback and turning that into sentiment analysis and really information you can use to improve the business. Now, we'll talk a little bit later about using insights for preparing for the end of the crisis. But right now, I just want to mention that we've recently taken steps within our product to add some additional functionality in to help our clients to identify and capture information and customer feedback with respect to the COVID-19 crisis. So what you see here on the screen right now, it's some real screenshots of our solution. An example of how we've been analyzing specific mentions of the coronavirus across all of the online review sites, across surveys and so forth, to enable our clients and companies to identify and analyze where and how often these mentions have taken place. So there's a number of different use cases that can enable, not least the ability to quickly identify potential issues at your locations. For example, if you have customers who are flagging concerns with staff at a location about how those staff are dealing with the crisis, then you're going to want to know about that. Another common use case for this kind of being able to kind of surface up topics like the COVID-19 topic itself is to automate a weekly or even daily reports to be distributed internally within your company to the relevant people. So, for example, the sort of report that aggregates all mentions of the coronavirus from across all of those online review channels, surveys, and so on, to enable you to then quickly surface that, distribute it within the company to the right people to be able to quickly identify, again, all new mentions of the coronavirus and then take action immediately if needed. So that concludes our recommendations on what you should be doing right now. But as our thoughts begin to turn to the time after the coronavirus, we're going to talk a little bit more about how you can begin to plan for that. But before that, another quick poll, Chris.
Yes, thanks, Bruce. So poll 2 should be on your screen in a moment. Poll 2 says, have you started planning for post-COVID-19? So only 4 answers for this one. Yes, and we have a plan ready. Yes, and we are currently working on a plan. No, but we should. And no, and we have no plans. So same as last time, I'll let that run for the 41 remaining seconds, and then we'll have a brief summary of the results. Okay, so we had a lot of feedback on that poll, which is great. So let's have a look at the results. So we have 11% have said yes, and we have a plan ready for post-COVID-19. 64%, which was the majority, went for the second option, which was yes, and we're currently working on a plan. 23% said no, but we should, which again is fine. And 0% said no, and we have no plans, which again is great to see. So thanks everyone for your input with those two polls. Some really interesting insight generated there. Over to you now, Adam, to discuss beyond COVID-19 and the steps you can take today to help your business prepare for what's next after COVID-19. So over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Chris. So there's a couple things that some conversations have shifted recently when speaking with clients and prospects, and we wanted to start talking about what happens past COVID-19. This crisis, while it might be weeks, it might be months before we're through this completely, it's still worth looking into what can we do now to plan for what happens after this, because things will go back to not how they were, but they will start moving. We won't be quite on such a lockdown. So how can we start preparing in advance for that? And I wanted to start by, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about Google My Business and why it's important. And this is something that we know many people on the call were already aware of. If you're working with us, we speak, as Bruce had said, very vocally about how Google is your new front door. The website's the anchor, but Google is the first place that people come and see your business. And it's also the best place to not just to get people through your front door, to your front door, but it's also one of the best places to improve your business operationally. And whenever we talk through, like, I really like this slide and this information on this, because it talks about two different things that Google can do for you. One is to improve your visibility when customers are looking for you or clients are looking for you. But it can also, and I think the one on the right is much more important, capturing that feedback, listening to what your customers are saying. This is the gold. This is truly the gold that you're going to be able to receive if you are active within Google My Business. Because what you're going to end up doing is listening to all of this customer feedback, both positive and negative, and then being able to double down on the things that are working and change what's not working. And if you have tools, as Bruce had mentioned previously, that allow for sentiment analysis and natural language processing for unstructured data, and being able to identify within a review that part of it might be good and part of it might be bad, and being able to focus on and being able to see, oh, at this location, at this store, the interactions with our staff are really good. So being able to, that can all exist within a single paragraph of a review, and being able to identify what's working and what's not working can have massive implications in you being able to change your business. And the reason that we're bringing this up now is many of us that are in non-essential businesses have more time potentially to look at this sort of information and to start making those sorts of changes that maybe if you're just in the midst of running your business day to day, you didn't necessarily have time for. So we're seeing a lot of our clients take the time to do these sorts of things by listening to Google My Business, which if they make these changes and they make these improvements to their business and their different locations, should and typically does lead to greater visibility within Google search results when customers are searching for them. So going to visibility, because this is always a big thing that our clients are asking, well, that's good. What else besides operationally? Like, what's the nuts and bolts in terms of Google's algorithm and how people are ranking for it? So this is a survey that was done a little over a year ago, year and a half ago, that showed what was a survey that shows what are the primary signals in Google local ranking factors, so map pack rankings. And let's be specific. We're really talking about those non-branded search queries. So sushi restaurant near me, or oil change in in whatever your city or town that you live in is. And when you look at these different factors here, it's interesting to see how much of those you have control over and that you have direct control over and that you can influence directly. So if you look at things like reviews, being able to generate more reviews, responding to reviews, making sure reviews are coming in consistently, that the sentiment is good, as business owners, you have control over that. Same thing with your Google My Business content, making sure that it's as robust as possible, it's as filled out as possible. You also have control over your on-page content with your own business website. And should you want to, certainly you can focus in on backlinks as well too and start running backlink campaigns. Again, it's when you think of all of these sorts of tactics, for many customers, they're seeing an opportunity to really focus on these things that they typically don't have time for, with the expectation that as we come out of COVID-19, they will pay off and result in more visibility on Google and then more business to their patients. So how can you leverage your Google presence? What are some things that you can do directly to My Business listings? First and foremost, Bruce mentioned some earlier, make sure that you're auditing and claiming your Google My Business listings for all of your locations. This includes just primary location, secondary locations. So if you are an automotive dealer, for instance, that would include your primary dealership list, but also your service department listing or your parts department listing as well too. Similarly, if you are a box retailer, it would be your store, but it could be pharmacy within the store or the photo center or the auto center, maybe the auto service center that might exist within the larger retail location as well too. Really important to continue in responding to reviews on Google. We've been advising our clients this entire time when Google stopped allowing new reviews to appear. We've been advising our clients to continue requesting reviews on Google. Google had made it one. Those reviews aren't being deleted. They were just being held sort of a purgatory sort of place. And just yesterday, we finally started seeing some examples of reviews that were left 2 or 3 weeks and had not been published, starting to be published and made visible within Google as well too. So all of those reviews and all of the businesses that had continued requesting reviews on Google will have a leg up at this point versus those that hadn't, just because total reviews, for instance, is a signal in Google's ranking algorithm. So always continue to manage to request reviews and respond to reviews as they come in. Okay, and then finally, just be prepared to that you need to your Google My Business listings once this lockdown ends. So if your stores become open again, you're going to want to remove the temporarily closed status. You might need to update your hours. You might want to put a new Google post up to announce that you're having you're opening a grand reopening. However you want to be creative with those, that's important to do as well. Okay, and then continue to turn Gmb into your new front door. So just a couple more tactical things here. This first one, make your Gmb listings stand out. At the bottom of that, at the very last thing, you're going to see pictures, pictures, pictures underlined and in bold, and there's a reason for that. People love visuals. They love seeing photos, not just photos that you are creating, but photos that and videos that might be uploaded from your customers as well. We are constantly recommending to our clients that the more photos that you have is not only going to improve your likelihood to show up, it's going to improve the likelihood that your customers, when they see your Google My Business front door, your business's front door, your Google My Business, they're going to be more likely to take action, like click on or to click into your website to get more information. Make sure, as I just mentioned, that your operating hours are up to date. Those have been changing rapidly. For instance, was just going to a store to do a curbside pickup just last night. And the business, I was trying to support a local business, and I called and I placed my order over the phone, and they said it would be ready for me at any point after 3 p.m. And I show up at 6 p.m. in the store normally. Their normal business hours is they close at 9, and I show up at 6 p.m. and I see a sign out front that says their business hours have changed to 5 p.m. But their Google My Business listing was never updated, and they failed to let me know that as well too. So it's important, if you are shifting your hours now, to make sure that that is made as visible as possible and that you're updating it on as many places as possible so that you can provide good customer experiences. Next, make sure you're utilizing your business descriptions. Your business description is the one place that you have an open text field within Google to essentially write whatever you want. Google Posts is another place right now where you can do that to a lesser extent, but that is really the one place where Google is saying, say whatever you want about your business and we'll put it in the knowledge panel. So if you aren't taking advantage of that and you aren't making messaging that's specific to where we are today, I think it's highly important that you take the time to do that. It's very easy to do. And I've seen some really good examples of how COVID-19 is just addressed front and center in that Google My Business description, which to me means that the business is taking that seriously. So I would highly recommend that. And then we've already spoken about attributes. I spent some time talking about that. So make sure that you're taking advantage of the new attributes as they become available as well. And then finally, Gmb Posts. As I said, this is a massive opportunity for multi-location businesses to start experimenting and utilizing Google My Business Posts at scale for the first time. If you haven't done this yet, now is the time. This is more likely than not going to be temporary. I imagine that once this crisis passes, Google is going to reinstate the chain restrictions. But you have a great opportunity right now to start looking at what type of posts work and to start running some tests to see if it will make sense, even if it's more costly and it's not as scalable once the chain restrictions are reinstated. You might be able to get enough data to make the case that you should be doing it anyways, even if it has to be more manual to make those posts happen. Okay, I just spoke about keep generating and responding to reviews. Post-COVID-19, during COVID-19, this is all review signals is the fastest growing signal in the ranking algorithm for Google. That's not going to change anytime soon. Google has found that sentiment from users, especially users that they can track that they're confident has actually visited the business location, to Google, that is a massive source of feedback and a fantastic signal that says this business still exists and this is what people think about the business. So they're going to continue using review signals more and more. So make sure that you're doing this on Google, but monitor reviews on all channels as well too. So it's not just Google, but think about Facebook or vertical specific sites. If you're in hospitality, for instance, TripAdvisor is one you should absolutely be thinking about as well too. And make sure that you're constantly responding to compassion, responding to these reviews with compassion. The difference between a business that is responding to reviews, all reviews, especially negative ones, and ones that haven't, and ones that aren't, is very large in the eyes of your customers when it's visiting you. I've been lucky enough to speak with a number of business owners recently, and I was talking with a automotive dealer, an owner of a Mitsubishi dealership. And one thing that I noticed when I first was speaking with him was I looked at his Google My Business listing and I saw something like 1,200 reviews and a 4.9 star rating. And I said to him, how is that possible? That I've never seen, that almost looks suspiciously spammy in some ways. I've never seen anything like that before. And he responded and said, if you look closely at at some of the reviews, many of those 5-star reviews that I've gotten were initially 3 stars or 2 stars. And any time that I received anything but a 4 or 5-star review, I don't just respond to that review, but I respond and I put my phone number, my cell phone number in there and ask the person that left that 1, 2, or 3-star review to call me directly. And I always pick up my phone and I will take the time to speak with them. And by doing so, he was able to turn those 2, and 3-star ratings into 5-star ratings. So you can see that there is absolutely the opportunity to respond to reviews and make a significant change in how you are perceived online, and to really turn potential indifferent or negative net promoters, if you want to think of it in an NPS sort of way, into positive and people that are promoting your business and very enthusiastically. And if you're using a tool like ours, you can always look at that sentiment analysis and that natural language processing like Bruce had shown earlier. And like I had spoken to earlier, use this time now to change operationally so that you can, when you reopen your doors, a lot of those kinks within your business have been worked out and smoothed out so that your business is running smoother than ever upon reopening. So make sure that you're looking at using this time wisely and taking advantage of potentially extra time that you have.
Okay, thanks, Adam. So let's answer some questions then. So we've already had a few come in. Usually we'd pause now for 30 seconds or so just to let some more come in, but we are conscious that we are close to running over. So we'll just jump straight in. Adam, I think this one might be best suited to yourself. The first question says, how do we keep our business information up to date when Google has limited functionality and aren't publishing edits?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that we're getting from a lot of our clients. So just to make you more empathetic to where Google's at, right now they have limited resources like many of us. They are working with reduced staff, with reduced resources. And with this crisis, they've had no choice but to prioritize anything related to healthcare. So healthcare edits or edits to listings that are classified as healthcare related are getting prioritized, as they probably should be right now. But what that means is that with those getting prioritized and with Google having less staff and less resources to approve these sorts of edits and make things run smoothly, there has been a delay in terms of when, if you are non-healthcare, your edits actually make it live. Google is working to get back up to speed. For a while, they were announcing 5 to 7 business days for edits to go live. And now the last that I saw is they're now setting expectations as 3 to 5 business days. So it looks like they're starting to get a better hold and starting to get a handle on all of these requests that are coming in. But it is going to take time. Unfortunately, there isn't much that you can do other than make these edits and wait. If after 5 days nothing has happened, you can always tweet at Google My Business on Twitter. I'm a big proponent, if you're a business and not seeing what you want to see, to go public. So you can look at Google My Business from Twitter, tweeting at them, and then the other places I would recommend going to the Google My Business forums, and just make sure you have everything documented, saying I made this change on this date, here's a screenshot showing that I made this change on this date, and I still aren't seeing the updates. Can somebody please help me out? This is a business critical issue for me. And sometimes you can get some escalations. If you can get escalated if you can make the case, and you can do that. You can post publicly and provide enough pressure on Google or a Google product expert to come in and help you.
Okay, brilliant. So just a heads up for everyone, we have 6 questions currently outstanding and we have 45 seconds to answer them. So if you were planning to only join for 45 minutes, please feel free to leave. We'll keep going and you'll get a full recording afterwards. But of course, if you can stay with us, feel free to. And again, if you do have any questions, just send them in and we'll answer as many of them as we can without going too overboard. So Adam, the next question is for you. So it says, you mentioned earlier that COVID-19 posts stay live for 7 days. Could you elaborate more on this? For example, should we post again after 7 days to ensure it's always there?
Yeah, great question. So here's what I would suggest. There's COVID-19 specific posts that Google have put up, and while they say that they should stay up for 14 days, there's conflicting information out there and inconsistent experiences that we're seeing when it comes to that. What I would suggest is that no matter what kind of post you are doing, after 7 days and after 8 days, like once 7 days has happened, if you have the ability to go in and republish it and just post a new one, even if it's the same one again, I would go ahead and do that. Again, with chain restrictions being removed, if you have access to a tool like Reputation.com, you should be able to do this at scale very quickly and easily. So there's no reason not to just be on the safe side and republish every 7 days. If we can get confirmation and have confidence that the COVID-19 posts will stay up for a full 2 weeks on all experiences, including mobile web, desktop, and mobile apps like the Google Maps apps, then we will certainly begin advising differently. But for now, definitely go in every 7 days and make that post again if you're able to.
Okay, question 3 again for you, Adam. I'm noticing a trend here. So question 3 says, can we update these new attributes on several Google My Business listings at once?
Great question. So not within the Gmb dashboard. So if you're managing your listings through Google My Business, that is not possible. If you are using a tool like ours, then you should be able to set attributes across multiple locations. And if you're having trouble with that and you are a client of ours, by all means, please get in touch with your customer success person, and they'll be able to help you with that, of course.
Okay, question 4 says, just going back to the Google review delay that you mentioned earlier, are these reviews being released gradually or all at once?
So we don't know. It's a good question. As of today, it's clearly gradual because we are not seeing we haven't noticed a business where suddenly they went from 250 reviews to 275 reviews within a single day. So it does appear to be gradual, but that could be that Google is slowly testing right now how it's going to look if they release a couple reviews that were left a couple weeks ago. And that's not to say that they might not change that in the future and get enough confidence that they feel they can just go ahead and immediately publish all reviews that had been collected over the past month. So as of today, it looks gradual, but that might change. And we will certainly notify our customers and clients through our blog and other places should that happen.
Okay, next question says, we are a property management company with multiple locations. If the parent company requests reviews, will they go for all locations, or does each location need to send the request for the reviews to post?
So that's a great question. So it really depends on where you are linking the review request to. So you have a couple choices as an enterprise company or a property management company, where if you have a Google My Business listing for each of your different properties or each of your different apartment complexes and so on, there's no reason why you can't, for a tenant that is staying in one of your properties, to request a review from them and link them to that property's Google My Business page. That would be best practices, because you want ideally you would want those reviews to be for that property and specific to that property. However, if you don't have a listing for each of those, you could certainly send them to your primary property management page and collect the reviews there, and that would be better than not requesting reviews at all.
Okay, next question says, do you recommend to respond to reviews that are a few weeks old, as they may not necessarily be relevant anymore?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. So typically, we would recommend that once a review is over a month old, if you haven't responded to it, it's pretty much too late. You usually want to respond within 1 to 3 days at most to any review, especially negative ones. Like you really want to be on top of that and turn those around as quickly as possible. Otherwise, you might just be reopening old wounds unnecessarily. This is a unique case where things have with this crisis, I think there might be a little more room to let reviews pass a couple weeks and apologize and say that we didn't receive this review until right now. I think customers will understand that their reviews weren't posted and that you're just getting to them now because this is the first that you've seen them. And if you think this is something where you can address this negative review or positive review for that matter, and communicate and open a conversation with your customer, then I'd recommend doing so. So I think there is an exception to be made for as the reviews start coming online that have been left in the past month. I think there's an exception to be made to respond to those, even if they're a few weeks old at this point.
Okay, next question says, back on slide 17, where we were talking about the local pack ranking factors from Moz, how do you define citations at 10.8%?
Yeah, so that survey was a survey where 40, and I'm using air quotes here, local search experts were surveyed saying, and given a list of, it was massive. Disclaimer, I was one of the people that were surveyed, of like 500 signals that Google would potentially utilize when determining the rankings within their search results, and us having to force rank them, those 500, one on top of another. And what the survey showed was the consensus among local search experts is that citation-related signals now account for approximately 10.8% of the ranking signals within Google's local ranking algorithm. Should note that is down significantly. If you had looked at the survey, 5 years ago or 7 years ago, that number was closer to 20%, I believe. So that number, not 20 years ago. This has only been going on for like 6 or 7 years, I think. So that number has dropped precipitously. And I had said earlier that review signals have been the strongest growing signal. Conversely, citations are dropping in importance. And the citations that are becoming the least important are those tail sites. So the yellowpages.com and the superpages.com and the insider pages and Thomson Local and things like those sorts of sites are becoming, your accuracy of your business information on those sorts of sites is becoming very, very low in importance as far as Google is concerned when they're deciding to determine how to order the sites that they return in their search results. Citations on top-level sites, Google, Bing, vertical specific sites like TripAdvisor or cars.com or those sorts of sites, those can still have a more prominent factor in the ranking algorithm, but those tail-end directory sites, very, very small and decreasing rapidly as well too. Google has much more confidence in review signals, for instance, right now when deciding which business to rank highest.
Okay, so the next question, which looks like it may be our last one, basically just asks for a bit more detail from you, Adam, about the COVID-19 posts. Is this something that Google has released? Is it a reputation.com platform feature? Just a little bit more information, please.
Great question. So Google just released this through the dashboard a couple weeks ago. They began API support a week ago, or less than a week ago. I think they had an API update where they're now supporting that. We're actively building that out right now, and we expect to support COVID-19 type posts from within our platform by the end of this month. So in the next within the next couple weeks, you should be able to post COVID-19 specific type posts from within our platform.
Okay, brilliant. So we had a lot of questions there. I'm conscious we've run over just under 10 minutes, so it's probably a good time to finish. So just some next steps for everyone. So everybody will receive a recording of today's webinar in case there was anything you'd like to go back and rewatch. We'll also send out an email later on this afternoon with a link to our first Town Hall webinar, which we ran earlier in April, if you'd like to catch up on that too. The email will also contain a few other helpful links, including our COVID-19 hub and also our Bright Talk channel. Now, between us in the UK, our colleagues in the US and Australia, New Zealand, we are running a lot of town hall webinars at the moment with some really helpful and insightful topics. So if you can register for them, that would be great. Of course, same as today, if you register and you can't make it, you'll get a recording in the same way as today's webinar. Finally, Transform. Transform is our annual customer conference, which was originally planned for Nashville. Due to COVID-19, it's now virtual, it's completely free, and it's open to everybody around the world to reap the benefits of our user conference over the course of around 3 hours or so, to develop further on what Bruce and Adam have touched upon today, and also share a lot of best practices about online reputation management and customer experience. If you're a customer of Reputation.com and you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact your customer success manager. And finally, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Bruce and Adam for joining me today and giving their time to present. And from all of us here at Reputation.com, thanks again for joining, and please stay safe. Thank you and goodbye.